Hello, friends. Welcome to yet another episode of EduTalks, where we invite leading educationists from across the country so that they can come over and share their views with our parents and teachers. Today, we have with us Miss Meenakshi Singal from Noida. So, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for agreeing to be on our show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, could you just start with telling us about your journey? Like, how has it been till now?
Well, it's been very interesting for the reason that, I've had the opportunity to work with all age groups of students very closely, even the very young, early years, pre-nursery, nursery, kindergarten, up to the older years in my career of 26 years. So that's given me a very wide perspective about how, children of different ages learn. Rather than just a focused area or focused group of age of students. Also, I have worked with different curriculum. In CBSE schools, in schools that follow the national curriculum of England, which is the British school, then of course the IB. So I think I have the advantage of being able to pick the best of all the practices. So I feel I've been very fortunate to have had those experiences. And of course, learning of all of that culminates of what goes on into a classroom. So I think we've been able to just pick the best.
Lovely, ma'am. And ma'am, like you were always in Noida, or before this, you traveled across different cities?
My career has started in Gurgaon. Okay. From Gurgaon to, I think, in the NCR, if I may say that. Okay. So I've been in a school in Gurgaon, then in Delhi, then in Noida, back in Gurgaon, so on and so forth. Also, I was abroad in the east of Africa, in Tanzania, and the capital, Dar es Salaam. So I was on the board of directors of the International School of Tanganyika for 3.5 years there. So that also gave me a very good experience about being on the other side of the table, where you're a policy maker rather than a policy implementer. So I think it's given me a 360-degree view of what education is like being on both sides of the, table or scenario.
Like, I would love to know that how and why did you pick teaching as a profession? What was the journey to that?
Strangely, I was very passionate about children. And I thought, I want to make a difference in this world. And when I want to make a difference, I think it's best to touch young lives rather than, the older ones. And so that was my first thought about getting into the teaching profession, because I do believe that, as a teacher, you're having a very large impact on the future generation of a country. So however cliched that might sound, but that was the, thought in my head. And I thought, so let me start young. But I must tell you, it didn't prepare me for my first day in the classroom. So when I was confronted with 24 students, of 6-year-old, 24 children in a class, and I'm like, Meenakshi Singal, what are you doing here? This is not where you can be. How are you going to get through this? And I thought, I'm not going to come back tomorrow. But then, of course, let me give it another day, and let me give it another day. And then when you see the actual impact that you have on little minds and how you can help, shape their thoughts, I think that is what really gives you the motivation. So that got me started on this journey.
Any role model which has helped you stay inspired during this journey?
As a role model, I just pick on different people for different things. And as and when I read about anybody, so I started with, of course, my father, who belonged to one of the richest families in Pakistan, pre-partition Pakistan, and I heard stories about how the first cycle arrived at their house and how the first ceiling fan arrived at their house, and things like that. So they were very, very, and then of course partition happened. And they arrived penniless in India. At the young age of 11 years old, my father started supporting his family of 5 people. How the family went into making envelopes from waste paper, and doing little things to support. And I'm like, so it started from there. I think what got me going was to be a self-made person. That's what it taught me. That whatever, don't depend on what you have. It's what you yourself develop in yourself, how you are as a person, how hard you work. That's what reaps the results. So I think that's what got me started. And I always kept that picture in mind, that we've started from humble beginnings and look where we are today. So we are very, very fortunate to be in a place where we are so comfortable. But I think one should not forget the lessons that, of course, I just heard them from my dad, but the fervor and the passion that I heard them with left a deep impact in my mind. So that's where it all got me started. And then I just pick on people where, that impact me. I mean, as simple as look at the Olympics, look at the women's hockey team captain, Rani Rampal. Look at her humble beginnings and how she has come up through that. I mean, playing hockey bare feet in a salwar kameez. And today she represented India in the Olympics. The hard work, the challenges, one just learns from all of that. To say that it's so admirable to see these people. Ratan Tata, what did he do when the terrorist attacks happened? How did he look after the people in the Taj Hotel? How did he make sure that the families were okay later on? How he supported them through the years? It's a story in compassion. It's a story of kindness. I think it's just the different qualities that I'd like to pick from different people rather than just having one role model. It's about learning all the time from different people and different circumstances.
It's very inspiring to know about your father's journey. It's definitely very inspiring. Any milestones, like you are now a principal of such a big school, so it must have been an amazing journey from the humble backgrounds that you're talking about to now. So, ma'am, any milestones or any cherished memories which you treasure?
It's really been a memorable journey. I think the milestones that I remember are more about students. Older students, teenage students who had to be, disciplined with love and friendship rather than being upset with them or shouting at them because they had said something different or they had implicated something different. So, how adolescents are. Adolescents are pushing boundaries. And whether you want to be really pushed or not is up to you as an adult. You are the adult. You are the one who thinks more maturely. So it's about, being able to guide them on the right path. It gives you a real high to see that you had that kind of impact on a young mind and maybe steered the course of their life by telling them that, this is really not acceptable. This is something that you could try and this is how you are. And then the thank you notes that you get from students or parents to say that, thank you, ma'am, for, there have been children who generally, and I'm sure you've experienced this in a classroom, sometimes it happens that you say, oh, this child is, he's not able to learn. He's not, but then every child has something. There is a talent. There is a way to get around that block. You just have to find the key to that. And the moment you do that, it just opens up the door to learning. And it's such a wonderful image that creates. And it's so good to see the way a child blossoms after you've managed to turn that key. Unfortunately, there are parents who give up on their children. Ye kuch nahi kar sakta, he is not able to do anything. And there are parents who get disappointed and who give up on their children. And it's an uphill struggle to let them know that no, it's not a lost battle. There's so much more there. So getting around those conversations, getting them to see and appreciate their own child, getting teachers sometimes do lose their patience. It's normal, it's natural. And just to have that chat with the teacher to say that, look at it this way. Try this with the child. And then it works wonders. So that, I think, keeps us motivated all the time. That keeps us, giving us the high.
Ma'am, Ma'am, any episode that you would like to share, like about the students you were talking about, which left behind a significant mark in your memory? Any particular one student?
So, in this was one of my first jobs in a school in Gurgaon. And there was this father who'd given up on a girl. She had learning difficulties. And I'm talking about 26 years ago when, learning difficulty was a taboo, was a stigma. And for a parent to acknowledge that the child was even dyslexic or had dysgraphia was, it just wouldn't be accepted by the parent. And so we tried talking to the parent, and of course the parent just gave up on the child, and he said, I don't care, I'm just not, I'm paying her fees and that is it. I'm not going to work with the child at home, because our line of action was, we are going to do this with the child at school, please follow at home, because a child like this needs that kind of reinforcement. And also a parent has to be a true partner in education. It is always a three-way process. It's not just the school and the child. The parent is equally involved. But then you see, it was just that, there was a lot of stigma attached and the parent did not believe us. So we started working, and I said, nevertheless, does not matter. Let us do what we can do. And bit by bit, this little girl blossomed. She was a brilliant artist. At the age of 8, we got her to have a mini exhibition in school. She started, speaking up in the class where she was absolutely quiet because her self-esteem had gone absolutely down. Can you imagine a child who's 7 and 8 years old not speaking up because she's so fearful that whatever she says is going to be, said that, okay, now enough, keep quiet. So just giving her the confidence to speak up, share her mind, share her thoughts through paintings, drawings, and be able to read and write without being self-conscious. I think that was a huge success. That was actually one of my first successes. And that's how I remember it so clearly. And it also gave me the learning that, I should not give up. It was very easy for me to give up because the parent had said, okay, I'm not going to do anything about this. I could have said that, I could just let it be. But I think, pursued. And I was really happy that I could touch and make a difference. And then, of course, the parent, when they realized later, were very, very, thankful, because we literally turned the girl's life around. So
really wonderful, ma'am. Really wonderful. Ma'am, you have taught students across so many different age groups, and we keep on hearing that it's more difficult to handle younger children in the very formative years, and as they start getting into adolescence and all, at least it's a little easier. What has your experience been like, as a principal or a teacher? Are there any different ways to handle them or approach them, or how has your experience been, ma'am?
The younger ones are so honest and so loving. It's such a pleasure to be working with very young children. And definitely it is difficult. Sometimes primary school teachers and early years teachers are very underestimated because they think, oh, they're just teaching young children. It's very difficult to teach science to a 12th grader or math to a 12th grader. But what does a kindergarten teacher do? Or what does a nursery teacher do? All she does is be in a class and read a story and all of that. But I think one of the most difficult tasks is to be in a room full of children who are 3 years old and 4 years old, and to be able to nurture them so that socially and emotionally they grow up into secure individuals. See, that is the foundation of your life. Those are foundational years. And whatever a teacher or an adult in their life does, that forms their personality. So if they have a nurturing teacher, if they have a nurturing environment at home, they grow up to be very confident young individuals. If they learn to take turns while speaking, these are values that they will keep for the rest of their life. Providing sensory engagements for young children, because this is the age where the most of their cognitive development happens. right from the age of 1 year to 6 years. That's when the brain develops the most. That is when the neurons are the most open. Then the synapses happen at millions in a second. There is so much capacity to absorb and learn at that age that as a teacher, it is a challenge to provide those learning experiences all the time to the children so that that brain gets what it requires to grow in the right manner, to create, of course, to deal with their questions. They're very curious. I think over the years, children and adults get conditioned to being quiet, not asking questions, or not even bothering to think sometimes, just following, developing a mentality where you're just following the others without thinking. But this is the best age because they don't know that. And they are curious to know, they want to learn. And as a teacher, you have to be constantly on your feet, thinking, planning, what is it that I can do that will make them better or get them to think a little more or learn a little more. So it is definitely more difficult with younger children. With adolescents, of course, it's a different. It's different. I mean, there are challenges at every stage of growing. With adolescents, it's more about behavior changes and how you get to accept themselves first, and then the kind of peer pressure they face. So how to learn to know what is acceptable and unacceptable, how to develop themselves to be able to stand up for themselves or being able to say no when it is required rather than just follow their peers for the sake of following. So every age has its own challenges, but definitely early years is an equally large challenge.
You would have come in touch with so many educationists in your lifetime. Any educationist who left behind a very lasting impression on you, and any one thing that you would like to share, what you learned from them?
Again, as I said, I learned from different people. So one of my earlier school colleagues, I used to admire I used to admire her grit and determination. She came into a position of leadership by default, and of course, she wanted to make the best of that. And but the way she developed herself as a leader was something to learn. Looking at her, I saw the way she started reading to know about the latest trends in education. I saw the way she interacted with colleagues. I saw the way she, made sure that the focus on the systems and procedures, the value of time management. So these things were all things that I saw in her, the way she developed herself. And I really liked that. One of my recent, colleagues in one of the recent areas, is such a compassionate human being. Sometimes, being in a position of power, sometimes you think you tend to a little bit mistrust somebody when you're not sure whether the other person is speaking the truth or demanding something which is right. And then you learn. What I learned from her was to look at the other side of the coin. Look at it from a different perspective. Every situation has a different perspective. So you and me could look at the same situation with different perspectives. And I need to understand where you're coming from before I come to a conclusion, before I judge a situation. I think it is so important to not judge immediately, but to first listen, be observant, apply your mind to different perspectives, and then come to a conclusion, rather than just jumping to it and just applying the same law to everybody. It does not apply to every human being. So these were very valuable lessons I learned from my colleagues.
Lovely. Ma'am, we keep on hearing that the 21st century, we are seeing first generation entrepreneurs, a lot of first generation entrepreneurs who don't come from families which were into business or from very humble backgrounds. We see Narayan Murthy, who we see now Zerodha. Number of startups are there right now. So 21st century is offering opportunities to people to make a name for themselves in one generation. It's not that they inherited something. At the same time, we are also seeing 21st century where people are going through a lot of challenging times at their workplace, where suddenly jobs are becoming redundant and they are being forced to upskill, reskill themselves. So a lot of agility is expected out of them at the same time. So 21st century is being characterized as a century which would offer unbelievable opportunities, but at the same time, equally amazing challenges, if I were to put it that way. So, ma'am, as young children, so what are the key skills that they should be developing now so that when they graduate from colleges, so they are prepared for this life?
You're absolutely right. In my role as a principal, when I interview a lot of parents and, for admission, when I'm interviewing children, not interviewing, rather interacting with children and having a chat with the parents about what are the professions, sometimes I hear of professions, I say, I've never heard of that before. And oh my goodness, there's so much happening out there in the world. Because I'm sure you also know this. When a lot of us grew up, it was like either you're a doctor or a teacher or an engineer, and that was where the buck stopped. There wasn't anything beyond that. But as I listen to parents, and I'm really happy to see the way they have upskilled themselves, and the reason for them to seek IB admission for their children, because they have realized that developing skills is more important than just focusing on content. And you're absolutely right. It is an age of skills. And these are skills that need to be constantly upgraded. So even as a teacher, as an adult, as a child, we will teach them skills. We do teach them skills. But all of us need to constantly upskill ourselves or sometimes reskill ourselves. And that is the demand of the times, because professions and jobs that existed before are not there today. And they're not going to be there maybe even 10 years down the line. Technology has taken over our lives. And just imagine, in this pandemic situation, if we did not have technology, where would we be?
True.
Life has gone on to a lot, it's been a lot normal because of technology. And I think by enabling education through technology, and we started very early with that. So that was one of the skills that we had in our school, that we employed in our school, because there's a lot of technology integrated education that we follow, and a lot of technology enabled learning, as we say. And students use technology in their learning, not as a separate subject. So it's used practically rather than as a separate, a computer class, as we used to call it when we were in school. Having said that, I think one of the most important things that we need to develop in children is, a process of being an entrepreneur. And that comes through design thinking. I mean, there is design thinking where you apply it to create a product, which is mainly a product design. Okay, I need to create something and I'm using a certain process to get there. But what we are focusing on, even the youngest of our children, as young as 4 years old in nursery class, is to develop a design thinking process, which means that focus on the problem. If you are faced with the problem, whatever it is, so we give them little problems. Okay, there is a bridge on one side and there's a bridge on another side. And this little dog wants to move from here to there. So how is he going to find his way across the bridge when maybe there is, nothing there? How do you think the dog will move? So that's very easily accessible to a 4-year-old child for them to think. What we are trying to say is, okay, think about the problem. Come up with ideas, come up with solutions, come up with multiple solutions. The point is not to have them solution focused. Okay, I will create this and finish. So no. Think of different ideas, think of different solutions, try out the solutions, and then come to a conclusion. So what are you doing? You are giving them the skills of ideating, of innovating, of finding multiple solutions, of trying out those solutions. And what do? If your one solution fails, what are you developing? You're developing resilience. You're developing determination. So it's not just that. There's so many skills associated with this. And then finally, you come to a conclusion. You create a prototype, you test it, you again see, oh, this is not working the way I had thought about it. You will think about it again. So it's going back again and again to find a solution. So that's the process. And that is a process that you can use anywhere in your life for the simplest of problems. Ideate, innovate, think about the solution, try out a solution, be persistent, empathize with what is actually required. If I'm creating a wheelchair for a disabled person, I need to feel like one to know what are the challenges I face. What is it that I would need in that wheelchair if I was disabled? So I need to empathize with that problem completely to be able to find a solution. So, and this is a process that I could use anywhere. And that helps me become an entrepreneur. Because when I come to multiple solutions and create prototypes, I'm creating new products. I'm creating new ideas. And that makes me an entrepreneur. You see, so it's the entrepreneurial mindset through the design thinking process, which I think would give our students a lot of skills. And the other skills that I was talking about, grit, determination, resilience, adaptability, all of that comes through this one simple process.
That's so if I got it correctly, ma'am, I'll repeat what I understood. So correct me, because this is gold, what you are sharing here, ma'am. So I just want to ensure that I understand it very correctly, and in that process, our audience also gets it. So first is to empathize.
Yes.
So put ourselves in the shoes for whom we are trying to solve the problem, so that the problem definition becomes very clear. Yeah. We understand what we are trying to address. Mm-hmm. Then ideate, think about it. Then innovate, think of a solution.
Yeah.
Implement it.
Yeah.
Observe whether it is working, not working. Mm-hmm. Take those inputs. Mm-hmm. Go back to the drawing board. Mm-hmm. And again repeat. So absolutely. In this process, what you're saying is, chances are that 9 out of 10 will not succeed in the first try. So we keep on repeating this. As we keep on repeating this, we demonstrate or we develop great resilience and determination. Then only will we be able to crack it. And yes. Through this, we develop this problem-solving attitude, and which is resilient. So then chances are that we become an entrepreneur or we become a problem-solving individual, so that we do good in our career.
Yeah.
So did I get it right, ma'am?
Absolutely right. See, because this is a mindset you would need in any situation.
True.
It could be a situation that you're you wouldn't know about. You don't know about it. It's a completely new situation. But the moment you're able to go through this process of thinking, it's inevitable that you would come to an area where you'll be able to say, okay, I have a solution for this. So it can be applied, as I said, in any situation. And one of the best skills it also develops beyond, being resilient is the one that you talked about, the first one, being empathetic. That is a skill that is so underrated in a society that sometimes tends to be very selfish and look out just for oneself rather than the other person or the community at large. I think to be empathetic is something that has to be developed in our children. We need to have children who are sensitive to others' thoughts, feelings, environments, how it is impacting others and not just ourselves. So that is something that this process also develops.
Ma'am, get a little deeper into this, ma'am. Like you mentioned one example of a problem that you shared with even 4-year-olds, and give those problems to them, ask them to focus on different approaches, not the ultimate solution maybe, but multiple ways through which we can address that same problem.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, could you share like other activities which you might have carried out at your school or seen other schools do it, which you believe helps develop this design thinking?
So also, there is a lot of focus on, as we say, sustainability in our school, about for children to try and be very mindful of the environment. So one of the challenges that we gave to our grade 3 students, which is about 7 to 8-year-olds, we said, okay, you have lots of newspapers maybe lying at home. Now create a piece of furniture with old newspapers, a furniture, and you can use other waste material. Nothing that you need to buy new or create anything new, but waste material lying around your house. Create a piece of furniture that can hold the weight of a child who's in kindergarten, say a 5-year-old child. So which means that should be about say 15 to 20 kgs. A piece of furniture that is strong enough to carry 20 kgs of weight. I mean, we were amazed with the designs that came up. Children used old tires, children used old, cartons and their covers and boxes, cardboard boxes, newspapers, all kinds of things that they could find at home to create furniture. And every piece of furniture looked different. That is the beauty of it, because when a child works, they never cease to amaze us with their creativity. They are really, they think out of the box. Given the opportunity, children think out of the box. I think we as adults try and restrict them to a box. Another, idea that's just come to me, what I remembered was when we were talking about boxes, and just to give them that space to ideate, create, and to give wings to their imagination, because you see, imagination is very important for children. So one way we do it is about, when they read stories, okay, what could be a different ending? How could this story end very differently? So come up with your ending for a story. This is a popular story, but what would be your ending to it? And one day we had this box day in school. What is a box day? So all we did was, it was a nice crisp winter morning. We laid out cardboard cartons of all sizes and shapes across the school lawn. And we let out our kindergarten children there. We said, now do what you want. And we just walked around talking to them, having conversations with them. So one of them created a car out of it.
Wow.
One of them created a house out of it. One of them said, I'm in an aeroplane and I'm just going to fly. Look at the creativity. Look at you just give them a little bit and they will create and imagine, and there is so much that comes out of it. So just giving them opportunities to ideate, imagine, and be able to be creative. So that develops the skill of creativity, thinking out of the box. This would seem like a very simple activity. Nobody would probably understand the purpose of it. Why on earth would we want children sitting inside boxes or playing with empty cardboard boxes? As parents, we want the most expensive gifts for them from the market. The day that the gift comes home, the child will play with it for, I think, 2 days. You give them an old plank of wood that a carpenter has left behind. You give them some, maybe a few toilet rolls that the cardboard inside the toilet rolls. You give them waste material from home, and you see the way children play with that and create different things with that. When I say create through their imagination. Maybe not create a car, but in them, they'll just turn it, twist it, or do something and say, now I'm in my car. Now this is an aeroplane. Now this is a house. Now look at this crocodile that's moving here. So it's unimaginable what they can do with little pieces of whatever they find. Schools all over the world now have waste. They have buckets and buckets of waste material that they would just leave out in the open. There is a park in New York, just outside New York, that where parents can take children to play. All it has is old tires and just rubbish lying around. And children have such a field day playing there because it gives wings to their imagination. A truck, if you buy them a toy truck, it's a truck. You buy them a, what do we say, a doll, they remain as such. But you give them an open space with different kinds of materials, old pieces of cloth. I have grandchildren, so sometimes the bed sheet becomes a tent. Sometimes it becomes a house. Sometimes it becomes a cloak. Sometimes it becomes the king's dress. It's just giving them the time and the space to do these things. And there you have your entrepreneurs of the next generation, because they have learned to use their creativity. They have learned to use their imagination. They have learned to, you have not stopped them from using their ideas or carrying out their ideas. And this will remain with them through their life.
It's very lovely, ma'am, that the way you explain the power of design thinking, because this has always been, I've heard about the concept, and it was always thought that this is required in very senior professionals, like in day-to-day jobs. So if you have the ability for design thinking, then you will do good at your job. But how this can be developed even at a young age through such simple activities, and how it is intertwined with so many other skills. So that was very enlightening. And I'm sure that schools, parents and teachers who have been listening to us, they will definitely take inspiration from this and try to imbibe a small dose of design thinking in the way they are conducting their education. Ma'am, I understand you are pressed for time, and it was lovely speaking to you about different aspects of education, right from your personal journey and different ways that you put it across. And we look forward to having you in the future also, ma'am, with us and sharing more. I know there would be lots of nuggets of wisdom that our audience could gain. So we'll take this opportunity to thank you once again. And thanks a lot, ma'am. Thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure entirely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.